What's your occasion, Lieutenant?
The case, sir. Mr. Paulie's murder. I think I'm getting close.
Then we'll drink to your good fortune. Here's to friendship, ripened long. Here's to voices raised in song. Here's to a long and thirsty night. Here's to the stuff that makes it right.
I got one for you, sir. Well, this is not exactly a toast.
We'll waive the formalities, Lieutenant. Out with it.
There once was an old man from Lyme who married 3 wives at a time. When asked why a third, he replied, one's absurd and 2 of them, sir, is a crime.
Some find their joys in courting, and others roam about. Some take delight in playing, and wind up full of doubt. Why search any farther? The answer's where you are. So join the celebration when there's whiskey in the jar. I'll raise my glass to you, a good old Irish brew. It gives the greatest pleasure that man...
Hello, this is Steve.
And this is Sean, and welcome to episode 3 of the Columbo Confab podcast.
Oh, we've done 3 of these?
3. We've been doing this for 3 weeks, Steve. Doesn't it feel like 3 months? No,
No, actually, I've been enjoying this. I would say it's been a thrill doing this podcast.
Because it's, for us, it's been sort of a recording marathon.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of sidelining our other podcast, but I think it's worth it.
And we only have 2 more to go until we sort of break for the season, but we'll get into that a little bit later, I think. Anyway, so this episode we're going to be talking about The Conspirators.
Yes, and I brought with me to celebrate a bowl of Lucky Charms and some whiskey.
Is it full?
Actually, I have the whiskey in the bowl of Lucky Charms.
Is it Fool's Irish Dew?
Yes, it actually is. Is that an actual brand?
I looked it up. It is not an actual brand, unless it existed back then, and it's long gone. But I tried
from the bad press.
I looked it up, and like for instance, the only thing I came up on images were screenshots of this episode. I think so. I think it was made up. Somebody spent a lot of money in the design department for that whiskey label, as well as the book that he writes. But
yeah, I think we should brand our own whiskey with this label and make a ton of money.
That'll.
And we could quit the podcast business.
That would probably be the worst tasting whiskey in the world. But so this is the story of Joe Devlin, a Irish poet in Los Angeles, mind you, yes, who is actually raising funds for Northern Ireland, but is secretly using those funds to buy guns and bombs for
the IRA. I'm assuming.
Yeah, the IRA, which is interesting because they never say the IRA.
No, they don't. But it had to be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Which, for those of you who are really young, was the Irish Republican Army, which I don't think technically exists anymore.
I think there's a peace that was brokered between the two groups, but honestly, don't know. Maybe if we ever do feedback, maybe someone from that region could let us know exactly, because that we unfortunately.
I remember in the 90s. I remember I had an Irish friend, and there was some news on it about it, and he was reading.
Well, it was big. Yeah, it was big back then. Yeah, early 90s it was a big deal. Late 80s, I would say.
Yeah,
that was big news.
Now, not so much. But so basically, they were fighting for the freedom of Ireland over England, and that's very interesting culturally. I was in Ireland about a year ago. And we went to Northern Ireland, and I was an idiot before I went there. I honestly did not know that Ireland and England were considered one nation together, while Northern Ireland was a different nation, and that they used the euros in Northern Ireland and then the pounds in Ireland. And it's bizarre for us to think that you're driving from one place to another, and it's technically 2 different countries. I guess it's bizarre for us living in Texas, because you can't do that. You can't just drive into Mexico. Actually, you could, but it's driving back that's the problem. But
it's It's all political, as Columbo said.
Yeah. Oh yes.
No, it wasn't. No, that was actually Joe who said it was all political.
Yeah. So there's a weapons deal that goes wrong. There's this vampire that comes along.
What?
His name is Mr. Pauly. I'm sorry, he looked like a vampire and he talked like a vampire. Beautiful craftsmanship.
Well, Mr. Pauly, he looked familiar, that actor. I couldn't place him, though.
His name was Albert Paulson. I did not look him up, actually.
I'm going to do that right now, because he did look familiar. I couldn't tell you where I've seen him before. Okay. He apparently did a lot. Oh, he was in The Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah.
The Frank Sinatra movie.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I have no recollection of this guy. Seeing that it was probably, 15, 20 years older.
Well, he was definitely doing the rounds during the 80s TV because he was on Airwolf and Knight Rider.
Wow. Well, who wasn't involved in Columbo that wasn't doing Airwolf?
Oh, in Manimal. He was in Manimal. Oh, he's in Quincy? He did Quincy.
Okay, all right. We have to talk about Joe Devlin, played by an actor named Clive Revill, or maybe it's Reville, I don't know, but he's still with us. He's quite old, but he's still with us. I think that he's most commonly known as the voice of the Emperor in The Empire Strikes Back.
No, wait. Who is this?
Clive Revill, who plays Joe Devlin. He has done a lot of voiceover work.
Wow.
We would not have known him for anything, but he was very popular on the stage. He played Fagin in Oliver on stage, not in the movie. That was a different guy.
Well, I definitely recognized him. His face, but I couldn't place him. I'd have to. I don't have to do that right now. But yeah, I definitely recognize him from other things, probably from the same time period. Yeah, I see he's listed in Empire Strikes Back, Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Oh, that's a winner right there. Wow. But he's an English actor. He's playing Irish here because he definitely looks Irish. Excuse me. So this arms deal goes wrong, and Mr. Pauly says, "Well, if you pay me $50,000 more, I can get the weapons to you quicker. It's going to be shit. They're going to be
15 days early."
Yeah. And
it's like Amazon. I mean, do you pay the extra $5 to get it 2 days early?
Yes.
And in reality, if you do what I've noticed when I order on Amazon, if I go for the free shipping, which is $35 or more, I sometimes get it 2 days. So you never know. You might get lucky. He could have gotten lucky, but he decided to go for murder.
Well, I have the Amazon Prime, and I love it. I've saved so much money off of that shit.
Maybe if Joe Devlin had gotten Prime, maybe. Yeah.
So he offers him Amazon Prime. If you order them by Amazon Prime for an extra $50,000, you'll get them. So he agrees to that, and then he follows Mr. Pauly around, finds out that Mr. Pauly is screwing him over, and then shoots him in his hotel room.
Right.
And
which I find funny. Okay, so yeah, that's the murder. There's a couple of things I want to bring up at this point. One, so Joe Devlin does not clean the murder scene at all. Doesn't wipe his fingerprints off. Doesn't.
Okay,
there's no. Yeah, in every. So I've probably have about 15 episodes now under my belt. Beyond what we've done for this podcast, so yeah, every murderer will clean the crime scene. Wipe the fingerprints. They do all these things. There's always that one thing they forget.
Or they wear gloves.
Right. So there was none of that. So Joe Devlin kills Pauly and leaves basically. So fingerprints everywhere, which I'm surprised they didn't dust the bottle for, which we'll discuss later. And another thing that I thought was of interest was, I completely lost my train of thought. I got so into that.
Were you going to mention the fact that this is the third episode that we've done in which the murder is just done very quickly and maybe a little bit slipshotty? Because, I mean, obviously he planned to kill Mr. Pauly, but it was done very quickly, and but as you said, fingerprints all over the place. Just like Vivica Scott in her murder, she didn't plan it. She just hit him over the head, just had to wipe everything off with the tissue really quick.
So do you think Joe Devlin, this was premeditated? He knew he was going in to kill this guy?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Okay. Oh, I know what my second point was. So if Joe hadn't killed this one guy, you find out later he's having difficulty. He wants to take out the middleman, which is Paulie, and he wants to buy the guns direct to save some money, of course. But during that whole time period, he's trying to find who the original source is, and you see him meeting up with like 5 other people who might be the dealers for guns, and he just keeps bombing after bombing after bombing. And he just gets so depressed.
And the dealers keep getting more and more scummy as he goes along, until he's eventually trying to meet up with a guy eating out of his van, who tells him, we don't deal guns anymore. We just do coke, hash, just the fun stuff. Yeah. And Devlin says, "Well, I guess that's a moral decision," which is interesting because that's made those points are made a couple times throughout this.
So if he never would have killed the guy, it would have all been fine. Columbo would have never come into the scene. The guns would have been delivered. I mean, everything would have happened to plan. But no, he had to take action, which obviously the O'Connells took issue with. Like, why the hell did you do that?
Well, they would have been the guns would have been delivered probably, but they would have been delivered 15 days later. And
no, he was willing to pay him that. I thought he was going to pay him that money up front. The Amazon Prime money. I thought he was going to pay him that, right?
Yeah, he was going to go to the hotel room, pay him, and then
he just didn't want to pay. He just didn't want to pay the third party, or the middleman. He wanted to go directly to the source, but he couldn't find the source.
Well, no, the reason that he killed Devlin was because he found out that Devlin was going to skip town immediately after he was paid. I'm sorry. The reason he wanted to kill Paulie was because he found out that Paulie was going to skip town and fly to Lisbon immediately after the deal was brokered.
Oh, right.
So,
right.
And like he says after he shoots him, he goes, "We execute traitors, Mr. Paulie." So, but what I don't understand is why does Mr. Paulie have to be there in Los Angeles for the shipment to take place?
That's how
couldn't he just broker
arms works?
Couldn't he just broker the deal and then somebody shows up with all the guns later on? That's not how he does it with the other guy later on.
Well, apparently you know how it works. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you need to broker a deal like this, contact Sean.
Contact Sean Patrick Scott.
He'll there's a 5% fee, transfer fee.
Okay, so what's interesting about this is that this jolly little guy, and there's a short list of murderers who are really friendly and amiable with Columbo, and this guy makes the list.
Yeah,
but
I would say that.
In the context, if we put this in today's context, this is if there would be, say, a Saudi Arabian guy in Los Angeles who's trying to sell guns to some terrorists, some Muslim terrorists. And we would just find that deplorable. But watching this now, today, it doesn't come across as that bad. And the fact that he comes across as so nice and cool and just like a jolly little fellow, he doesn't come across as an asshole, yet he's a terrorist, basically.
Well, yeah, and even it chronicles his time when he was young, when he got arrested for dynamite, right? Dynamite possession,
yeah.
Is that a thing? Interesting. I like the scene, and I'm sure I'm kind of curious. Sometimes you say you randomly pick these episodes. I'm a little suspicious of that, I'm going to be honest.
No, I totally randomly pick them.
So, Joe Devlin, the murderer, has like 3 pinballs in his house.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess anybody who knows me that I love pinball and have a few machines myself. So I was immediately drawn to the pinball machines he had in his home. And there was even a scene where he plays Columbo, right? Mm-hmm. Against pinball.
When they first meet.
Right. And there's an issue. I have an issue with that. I'll tell you in just a second.
Here we go. Okay, go ahead.
But I liked how Devlin had 3 machines. They were like early 70s Gottliebs. And Columbo says, you have pinball machines, and in your house, said something like, Mrs. Columbo wouldn't approve. And I said out loud, well, my wife wouldn't approve either. She won't let me keep them in the house. So.
You have to keep them in the garage, right?
I have to keep them in the garage.
Wow.
Oh, I'd love to have them in the house. But Yeah. So my issue with so Columbo and Devlin are constantly competing, like on a game of pinball, darts, limericks. But Devlin beats him in pinball. But the problem is they're playing two different machines, and each machine scores differently. So you might have a bumper that's worth $100 on one game. 100 points on one game, and another game it might be worth 1,000 points on another. So you can't. It's like you can't compete two different machines with the same score. So I had a problem with that. That was my biggest problem with the episode.
Somebody write to Howard Beck, who wrote this thing, or is it Howard Burke?
I love that they had those old pinball machines in there. That was great.
So the guy that wrote this, his name is Howard Burke. No, you're right. I thought of you when I saw that. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of this. Yeah, Steve is going to love this. The guy who wrote this, his name is Howard Burke, or is it Beck? Maybe I should have written it down. Anyway, maybe
you should have researched this.
This is his second Columbo episode. He wrote one before this that's touted as one of like the best Columbo episodes ever.
Which one is it? I may have seen it.
It's called By Dawn's Early Light.
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
Everybody talks about that one, and everybody kind of forgets this one.
I'm going to watch it after we're done.
No, don't. Just wait until it comes up in the swinging wheel of the 70s. But the one thing that this episode is known for is the fact that it is the last of the 1970s episodes. It is number 42 if you count the two pilots as episodes. Or is it 43? I don't know. Research issues. But it comes out because if you look closely you don't have to look closely. At the very end, what's the last line that Columbo says before it cuts to credits? I know I'm jumping around here to the last line, but
I don't remember what he said.
He says, "This far and no farther," as he pours himself. So every time they ended a season at this point, like season 5, 6, and 7, they always had to end it on some sort of poetic note. So that's why he has that line, "This far and no farther."
So do you think they knew this would be... Did the show get put on hiatus at this point?
Yes. I mean,
but did he know that?
Yes, he did. They had a feeling that it was going to happen for a while. In fact, throughout the later seasons, there's only maybe 3 or 4 episodes per season. And you can tell by the way that they end that, they left it open-ended, or they would leave it on a note that was sort of... nostalgic or what's the word I'm looking for? Happy or prophetic or whatever.
On a high note.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Wow, no, I didn't realize that.
And they had no idea that it would come back, 15 odd years later.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So.
Well, and another thing I picked up on, now, I'm definitely picking up on Columbo's method of how he annoys his suspects. I had the impression that Columbo knew who the murderer was, like, way early on. Like, probably 5 minutes within his appearance on the screen. I don't know if that's the fact. I just had the impression that he knew that Joe was the murderer, and he just couldn't prove it yet.
No, that's a really good... That's one of those... Every time you watch one of these, that's a great question. When does he know that the murderer is the one? I think it's the moment that he finds out that "Ourselves Alone" is the Irish Republican battle cry.
Yeah, the Sinn Féin.
Yeah, Sinn Féin. And it's the cute little bookstore clerk who tells him that.
Oh, that's a funny scene.
That's really good scene. That's a really funny scene.
There's a lot of humor in this episode, and that's being one of them. Another one is when Columbo confronts Joe at whatever Irish bar they're at, pub, and he notices, "Oh, you're drinking the same bottle of whiskey that was at the murder scene."
Oh, and his face just...
Yeah, and he goes, "Oh, well, Japan sends Stevie's and Ireland sends whiskey."
Yeah.
That made me laugh.
He had such clever lines. And I love the part where they're playing darts. And Columbo goes, "This is for being an Italian in an Irish bar." This is...
Really, it bumps off.
Yeah, oh, so good. Yeah. And of course, when they're doing limericks, it's really good. And when I first saw this years and years ago when it was on TV. I didn't like this episode at all. I thought it was a terrible episode because the murderer kind of lacks that sort of, snobby, schmear, glossy veneer that a lot of murderers do. He doesn't hold Columbo in contempt. Columbo annoys him, but...
I love that's the best part of every episode.
He doesn't live in a big mansion. He doesn't wear really nice clothes. He actually wears a really ratty rooster tie. And I also didn't like the fact that
it's a thing.
As the episode title suggests, it's not a one-man job. That there are people that know that he did this.
Yeah, I thought the plot was a little more, I don't want to say complex, but there was more levels to what was going on in this episode. So you just didn't have Joe Devlin. You also had the O'Connells. You had this crazy cowboy RV van guy. The gun runners, and you had the weird, slightly homosexual young man that was from Ireland.
Whoa! Where the hell did that come from? Wait a minute! You may have a point.
I think you knew this.
No, I did not know this. I did not think this at all. I swear to God.
A little bizarre, don't you think? Young man, handsome.
He lives in that little chalet on the beach with Devlin. Maybe. I don't know. That is a little bit behind the candelabra.
If Devlin wanted a young man who liked to play pinball and would take care of him, that would be me.
Well, now that we know what your limits are, Steve.
Right.
Yeah, I
this much and no more.
But it's interesting that there are at least 3 other people that know that Devlin is the murderer, and I was questionable at first, but right after he kills the guy, he's out in the patio with the young man Kerry. His name is Kerry, and Michael McDonald. Is it McDonald or O'Donnell? I don't know. And
it was George O'Connell.
George O'Connell. McConnell. I thought it was Mick Connell. Oh, O'Connell would be more. Yeah, that's more Irish.
It's more Irish.
Yeah, McConnell
that's Australian. I'm doing.
No,
boy,
sounds more like Jersey. But it said, what? I don't know what you've done, Joe. You're gonna get us all in jail. And then later on, he tells Michael. He says, "Look, no one knows who shot poor Mr. Pauly. No one knows, and no one will ever find out." So it's kind of up in the air whether or not these folks know about it. Or do they?
I think the O'Connells, Kate and George, the husband and wife, I think they know. I mean, definitely Joe's young
houseboy
friend, houseboy. I think he knows too.
Oh, he says later on when he sees him, "It's a pity about Mr. Pauly." I don't know.
Yeah, wait a minute. So Mr. Pauly is played by Albert
Paulson, I believe.
Paulson. Interesting.
I wouldn't look that much into it. Okay. I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know. But
wait. Can we rewind? I mean, we're going into the story a little bit more than I want to go back to Joe doing his little folk kind of Irish song and dance.
Oh yeah.
They're at the O'Connell's mansion. I guess it's some kind of function to raise money for children and widows of people who, have lost their lives in Ireland. And the mansion, I got to say, I recognize that mansion. And then I guess Columbo being shot in Hollywood, you see a lot of similar places if you watch those kind of programs.
Yep.
But I know I've seen that mansion on Twilight Zone.
I know. I thought the same thing. I swear to God, I thought the same thing, and I don't know where I've seen it either.
But I've watched enough episodes of Twilight Zone to point that house out.
It happens a lot in classic Columbo. You'll see the same places over and over again. I
have noticed that. Yeah, I have noticed the same apartments in a lot of Columbos.
Yeah. In fact, the apartment that this one is in makes an appearance in a couple of them that I can specifically remember. The establishing shot of the apartment where the hotel where the murder occurs. By the way, You know when I knew that Columbo knew for sure who the murderer was?
When?
Was when he was at the crime scene. Which, by the way, did the LAPD rent that hotel room indefinitely for Columbo to just go and sit and think in?
And read?
Yeah, and look and push the bottle around with the.
Well, and I was surprised that Joe could walk in. Like
that's
Columbo was.
Yeah. It's like, he just walks in like, what the hell are you doing here? I never told you where he was killed. What the hell? I thought you could use a little bit of help.
See,
that doesn't make any sense.
I figured Columbo was like, whoa, this guy, in the same bottle of booze and every. I thought for sure he figured it out early on.
Oh yeah, I think I would pick at the bookstore, but I think he had an inkling before he even went to his house. After he saw, Devlin was literally the only person that he could connect with Paulie. And he knew that Paulie knew his murderer because of the bottle of whiskey. So maybe he knew before he even saw Devlin.
Well, that was the biggest hint, was that he said to Joe, he said, or this is Columbo talking to Joe, it's like, he ordered room service for this special whiskey. They didn't have it in stock, so he had to have somebody sent out for it. So it was something very specialized to get this kind of whiskey. I thought, man, that was the giveaway for me. If I was Columbo.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to kind of bring up is that scene where Joe is doing his little song and dance to raise money. He was not funny at all.
No, he was really obnoxious.
People were laughing at this thing, and honestly, I would ask for more to drink.
Do you know what he reminded me of? Somebody that I've never thought that was funny, but God rest his soul. He reminded me of Robin Williams. I never thought that Robin Williams was funny. Maybe when I was a kid, I would watch Mork and Mindy, but
shame on you.
Like the only thing that Robin Williams ever did that I thought was funny was Aladdin. And even now, I just think he's so obnoxious the way he... Well, wait, I take that back. He was pretty good in Good Morning Vietnam. But like his stand-up comedy where he acts like he's on fucking speed, just running all over the place.
He was on fucking speed.
Well, it wasn't... To me, it
Sorry,
wasn't
it's a
funny.
family podcast. We shouldn't cuss.
It's too late. There's been 2 episodes of fucks and shits and...
So can we revisit the miming thing at the bookstore?
Okay, sure.
So, Columbo walks into the bookstore. He presents a photo to the clerk or whoever, the stock person, the girl. She goes, "Oh, it looks like he's sleeping."
Oh my God!
Because he's dead.
Oh, he looks like he's sleeping, doesn't he?
Because he I should rewind. He shows the clerk a photo of Paulie, and when she says he looks like he's sleeping, I'm assuming it's the photo from his. It's the only reason he has that photo, right? Because it's from the murder scene. But anyway, so while she's showing it to other clerks to see if they recognize the guy, he's going to. It's kind of like going to Barnes and Nobles. They have these books out on tables you can look through, and they have, they're usually like on discount for $15, and it's like the greatest arts of I don't know.
It's like Renaissance time shit,
right? But he picks up on erotic nudes or something like that.
Yeah.
Erotic art, ancient erotic art. So he's, he picks it up like it's a Playboy magazine. He's looking at it, vertically, and but I like this one lady across the store, and she gives him the dirty stink eye for.
Well, and then the music, doom, 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 doom.
But after he gets embarrassed, and the clerk comes back, she's like, "Oh, what was he looking at?" And so she picks up the book, and then she gets the stink eye from this prudish bitch who apparently just has a bad thought about it.
Yep.
I thought it was funny.
No, it was very funny. That was very cute. That was comedy that worked.
Yeah.
As opposed to something like him sitting in the psychiatrist chair when he's going to interview the psychiatrist. Yeah. I have a theory of why Joe Devlin was in such a good mood all the time when he talked to Columbo.
He was drunk?
Oh, God, yeah. I wanted a drink so bad watching this. You know, I don't know if you know this, folks, but we love Jesus, but we drink a little. And we might even drink a little bit during this podcast. But, man, as Michael O'Donnell said, Michael O'Connell says, maybe you could figure it out if you didn't have a drink screwed in your hand. It's true. He's always drinking. And he's not just drinking beer, although sometimes he is. No, it's usually like the hard stuff. Fools Irish do.
Yeah, I really wanted a shot of whiskey.
Yeah! And, but I also have to note that this is the only episode of Columbo in which he drinks with the murderer.
No, that's not true. He drinks with... I thought on the last one we watched.
Murderer Self-Portrait?
No, I know, it's kind of weird, actually. I know I saw one where he was drinking. Shoot.
There was the Bye Bye Sky High IQ murder case.
No, there was another one where he said, "Oh, I shouldn't. I can get in trouble for this with my boss." Oh man, what was I?
Well,
whatever.
Maybe
it's happened before.
Maybe he imbibes a little there, but in this one, he actually goes out on the town with him.
So when he goes back to the when he does that all night bender with Joe, I like the scene where they do the epic rap battles with limericks.
Yeah.
So I don't know, bizarre. What did you think of the actual gunrunner, the guy with RV store?
LQ Jones. Yeah. I love that that's the actor's name. He
kind of reminded me of the guy who does the Hey Vern. What was his name?
Oh yeah.
What's his name?
Ernest Goes to Camp.
It was like Vern, something, whatever. But he reminded me of that guy, and at first that's who I thought it was.
Jim Varney. That's his name.
Varney.
Jim Varney.
That's it. Yep.
A character who started out doing mattress commercials and then got his own series of movies. Did you have those commercials down here in Texas? Because we had them up north.
We had his he did commercials for Brahms.
Oh, okay.
Like, hey Vern, what you doing? He would like show up in random spots. But that's who this guy reminded me of. Yeah,
I was reminded of the. If anybody wants to see a really good YouTube video of bloopers, look up Winnebago Man. And it's this, it's shot on VHS. It's this guy, this middle-aged to older guy trying to make a commercial for his Winnebago dealership, and he can't do it. He gets through all these takes, and he just ends up, screaming, "You could buy one of these! Oh, goddamn flies! Damn it! Start all over!" And he's yelling and screaming. And these were so popular that somebody put together a documentary of this guy called Winnebago Man. Don't ask me what the guy's name is, but that's what I thought of. That this guy's any second he's going to go screaming. But the thing about the Winnebago guy, I can't remember what the hell his name is. I just remember the actor's name is LQ Jones, which I think is kind of cool.
I like that. I call you LQ if you want.
No. Oh, no, it's okay. Although the actor, I looked him up. He's been in a bunch of stuff, and he has the same birthday as me. Just saying.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Not born the same day, of course, because he would have been 3 when this episode came out. But he that whole subplot involving the guns and Devlin trying to go get more guns, and then the Winnebago guy is the guy that comes through with it. Well, actually, I was going to say that it was just all in a way it was all puffery because there were 2 crimes going. I should say there were 2 crimes, but there really only needed to be 1 crime. Every episode of Columbo is about the murder and the cat and mouse game between the murderer and Columbo. But in this case, it sort of evolves into 2 crimes. You have the murder, and then you have the guns, and how he's going to manage to ship the guns.
Yeah,
on the
like
day
they bring in the FBI, the Coast Guard, and
And it's this thing where he figures out that LAP-213 is the name of a pier, and he goes and he searches the ship, which has the most Irish-looking captain ever on it. And I think his name is actually even Captain Sean. The actor's name is Sean, Sean Connolly. And by the end, it turns out that how he solves the mystery of how the guns are going to get out of L.A. is just as important as how he's going to solve the murder.
Yeah, and that's actually, he's more concerned about getting those guns there than he is about getting convicted of murder. You find out towards the end.
Wait. Well, actually, I'm so sorry. I think it's a matter of morality, and that comes up in the earlier in the episode, because he could either focus on this one guy, this piece of shit gun runner who was killed, or he can focus on the bigger picture, which is that these guns are going to get to Belfast and get in the hands of or end up killing innocent people. And this is brought up a couple times when he confronts, or when Devlin talks to his houseboy in the bar. Carrie says, "Well, it's a pity about Mr. Devlin," and Devlin says something like, "Well, it's all just innocent victims of war," or something like that. There's so many innocent victims in war. And then when he's trying to buy guns, and there's the one guy that just says, "Oh, we just sell coke and hash and weed or whatever," and Devlin says, "Well, I guess it's just a question of morality then." And really, that's what it is, because we don't see anybody get killed by these guns, but if they get out of the U.S., it is a huge question of morality. It's not just a question of violating federal law, but I mean, that's the bigger picture, stopping all these innocent people from being killed.
So did you learn anything about needlepoint in this episode?
Oh my God!
And why was Columbo's nephew getting second place in needlepoint and first place in weightlifting? That's so weird. Where'd that come from?
We had this conversation before. What he says is true and what it is that he makes up. Yeah. And I think that was not a good... were they trying to be funny? I don't know, but...
Well, you believe... You're on the side that the Columbo's wife is real. And I'm on the belief that she isn't.
Oh, yeah.
But...
there will be proof. So. There will be proof. There has to be proof. Going back to when Devlin meets Columbo in the hotel room, which sounds like a setup for a terrible porn, but they're talking, and Columbo knows by this time that he's the killer, and Devlin pretends that he's going to try to figure out what LAP-213 means, and there's this wonderful scene where they're both laying down on these really gross twin beds that are in this suite of a hotel room, trying to think. And I'm thinking at one point, well, that's really cool, really good blocking. And at the other hand, I'm thinking, why are you laying on the beds in in a crime scene? Don't do that. That's gross. And why did Mr. Pauly rent a room with 2 twin beds? Really, Mr. Pauly?
That's all they had. It was a nice hotel, though.
Yeah. It had an airline office. Did you hear that? That he said, right before he kills him, he mentions the fact that he went down to the hotel's airline office and bought 2 tickets to Lisbon, or 1 ticket to Lisbon, back when hotels had airline offices. I've never...
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
No.
Not in our lifetime, sir. Not in our lifetime. Okay, so I do have to ask you something. There is a scene where Devlin is being interviewed on the radio.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And right before that is, I think, when he talks about Mickey Dolan. Or
Not
is
from
it...
the Monkees.
Yeah, I know. Wait, no. I think it's Michael Dolan. And I automatically think Mickey Dolenz. But he was talking about how when Devlin was in prison and saw some stuff written on the wall, and he said, it was written by Michael Dolan. And Columbo just will not get off that topic. And I think...
No, he loves it.
Why? It wasn't a really good clue.
No, it wasn't. But I do love that. I think Columbo has his degrees of annoyance when he's on the trail. And it's so funny because I always enjoy when the murderer is starting to get really annoyed with the one more question, the showing up unexpectedly. Columbo was showing up everywhere. Devlin was like at the pier. So Devlin, he has to talk to the captain. Like my guns aren't going to be on the boat at the time we agreed, and so he happens to look out the window of the bridge of the boat, and there's Columbo waving at him. Like what do you think? 50 feet away? Like how did he even see him?
Yeah, like Jesus Christ! And then he goes down and talks to him.
Yeah, when Columbo's waving at him, he looks at him. He's like, "Should I wave? Should I not wave?"
Yeah. Well, it's a two-tiered thing because he knows. First of all, Columbo's annoying. Second of all, he's not supposed to be there because Columbo's not supposed to know that that's the boat that the guns are going to go on.
But see, that's what I think Columbo knew. He gave Devlin the pier number. He knew.
Okay.
What LPD or whatever it was, or
LAP
213.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he knew what that was, and he threw that out there because he wanted to see if Devlin would take the bait and bite.
And what's really magnificent is after he starts talking, Devlin gets out of the boat, he goes down to the pier, and he's talking to Columbo, and he he thinks he's done talking to him. He turns towards the camera to walk away, and then in the background, Columbo turns around and does his "one more thing, sir," and Devlin's face just falls like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" And then he just has to smile and turn back around. Lesser men would have cracked and yelled at Columbo. This is why I think the man is drunk all the time. He's got to be drunk all the time. And he even when he's sitting there at the end, and he's sitting in the bar and he's watching, the ship go by that's got all the guns on it. Actually, it's the tugboat. Spoilers. He's sitting there celebrating and he's relaxing. He pours himself a drink and he looks over and there's
Columbo.
Yeah. Standing there with a rumpled lunch bag with the stuff in it. Like, oh God, am I ever going to get rid of this idiot? And that's classic Columbo. I mean, that's all there. It's all there.
Yeah, it is. That's his MO, but it's still. I think this is the most annoying out of all the episodes I've seen to date. This is the most annoying Columbo.
Oh no, I don't know.
You've seen it gets worse.
I think he's pretty bad in that one with Dick Van Dyke. Like at the point where someone tells you to get the hell out. Again. Yeah, we'll get to that one eventually. But there's also ones where they tell him they're gonna call a superior, get him fired, yada yada yada.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen the superior thing. Yeah.
But the fact that Columbo hangs out with him and has a lot of drinks with him, that is actually pretty cool. And I would be willing to bet that they put that in the last episode on purpose. Like, we've never seen Columbo do this. Let's see Columbo get a little drunk.
But he needs to enjoy himself.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I like the scene where, we were discussing earlier, where Devlin was trying to find the supplier. He was trying to find somebody to get the guns for him, and so he goes to the guy who's now into dealing dust. He goes to another guy, the RV guy. That doesn't work out because that seems to be a dead end. But he runs into a guy, and it looks like it's the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah,
where it's just this big warehouse with piles of, I don't know,
grain or cement or something.
I don't know, but yeah, I was thinking Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And he just says to him, "Go to hell, Mr. Devlin," and walks away. Yeah, that's telling him.
Mm-hmm.
But if Devlin wasn't able to get the guns in on time, and if Michael O'Connell and Kate O'Connell, his mother, would have been let down, do you think that they would have had Devlin killed?
I think they thought of him as a loose cannon.
Yeah.
And I don't think they liked working with him, but he was a kind of a necessary evil to kind of get money to host these events.
These money-making shenanigans, as he calls it at one point.
Yeah. So George O'Connell was the son of Kate.
Yeah, that was her son.
I thought I heard that, but I wasn't real sure because they look the same age. Okay.
They do. The only thing that makes her older is that she's in a wheelchair. But no, they establish it when Columbo goes to visit them that she was the wife of O'Connell of O'Connell Enterprises, and of course George is their son. And their family crest or flag is that green and yellow thing that's on the tugboat. So
I read on Wikipedia that there was a Carol Hemingway. She was the talk show host, which great scene. But apparently she was playing as herself, so she was like on the early Fox talk radio kind of thing. She was.
I knew that. I knew that she was playing herself, and I I have no idea what kind of a radio talk show host she was. I don't know if she was like one of those conservative talk show hosts. Is that why you're saying Fox?
Yeah, I don't know, because most talk radio is very right wing. But you know,
I don't know.
Maybe now you know the other half of the story.
I tried looking her up, and I couldn't find anything about her. Where did you read that on Wikipedia?
I don't know.
Because I looked her up on Wikipedia, and there wasn't anything. There wasn't anything there. But anyway, and of course, when he's talking to her and being interviewed, he's drinking a beer. Of course.
Interesting. Yes. Yeah. That's how podcasts are today, ladies and gentlemen.
So, all right. Are you ready to rate this thing?
I am.
Oh, wait. Before we do, I want to ask you one thing. One thing that's very important. What did you think about the final clue with the fact that his diamond ring was the gimme, the fingerprint, if you would? Although his fingerprints were all over the thing, but whatever.
I know, that would have been probably more, but... yeah, I mean, I guess it was okay. It didn't hit me until later, because you kept seeing Joe scratch the bottle, and it occurred to me later, like, oh, okay, I can see where this is going to come into play.
And when he does it at the crime scene, they don't show it, because they're showing Mr. Pauly's face at that point, and you hear Joe say off camera, "This far and no farther," and then he pours out the whiskey. So, it makes sense, I guess, but I guess I don't find it plausible when his fingerprints are all over the bottle. And you normally can't get someone's fingerprints unless they've been arrested or if they give them up willingly. So, even though he's been arrested as a boy in England, I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works.
That's what makes me think Columbo knew really at the beginning of the program that he was the murderer.
But
I think he just couldn't prove it. I don't know. I just... Because he was hovering around Joe quite a bit, and he was showing up, like, Joe was always there when he was going. Like, I just felt like he knew.
Well, he knew because of the book, and then he knew because he found out what it said in the book, and then he knew because Joe shows up at the fucking scene of the crime.
Yeah.
For no reason. Oh, well, although he doesn't focus on that, but the clincher is that, that's his favorite drink. And apparently no one else in town drinks it.
Yeah, right. That should be a huge clue.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge clue that someone's an alcoholic, because that's what that is. When you go to a bar and you have your own bottle, ladies and gentlemen, that's a problem. That's a problem. You got to call Buddy Ford.
All right. So ready?
Yeah. Let's rate this thing. Who shall go first? Oh, you pick the number, and you go ahead and rate it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and rate it out of the Pier number 213.
Okay.
I think I went first last time, so you go this time.
All right. Well, you know what? I really like this. I did not like it when I first saw it years and years ago, but watching it now for this, I really liked it a lot. And I think that I'm going to give it a 170.
Nice.
Okay. My rules for Columbo, like, there has to be a good reason for him realizing who the murderer is. There has to be good banter between him and the murderer, and there has to be a good final clue. Was there really great banter between him and the murderer? Oh, yes. And I love the fact that for once, even though he was annoying the hell out of Devlin, that they still got along well. There was obvious reasons for him to think that Devlin was the murderer, and the end clue was pretty good. In a way, it was different from the usual Columbo format because, like I said, you didn't have your usual mustache-twirling villain who was like, a high-powered movie star or lawyer or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just had this sort of a rumpled little Irishman who's a drunk, But you know what? At the end of the day, I really didn't mind it so much. I took points off for one big thing. And that was the fact that this is a little bit fluffed up. Especially the scene towards the end when Columbo chases the boat. And,
yeah, I was trying to figure out what he was seeing. And of course we find out later, but I was a little confused by that.
That took way too long. watching him drive and then seeing him put the quarter in the binocular thing or the telescope thing.
Well,
and
yeah,
then,
like how long does it take a boat to leave dock? Holy crap! It was like 6 hours.
I don't know. And then he drives to the bar where Devlin's hanging out, and the boat's just happens.
Well, no,
to
he goes back to the police station, grabs the original bottle.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And then goes to the bar where Devlin normally goes, and he goes to the other 2 locations where the other bottle. I mean, yeah, doesn't.
Well, they were all kept in one place. Maybe he got them all prepared beforehand because he was preparing to confront Devlin, regardless of whether or not the boat's left. So,
okay, so you gave it what, a 170?
Yeah, I really liked it. I mean, I liked it more than I thought. It's probably the best one out of the 3 that we watched so far for me. Even though, like last time I talked about how that whole subplot involving the 3 women was just complete, bullshit. In this, the stuff that was the subplot totally worked for me because it was believable. And I really kind of liked Joe Devlin, but I kept saying in the back of my mind, he's a fucking terrorist. You can't like this guy. That's just terrible. And then that brings back the whole thing about morality. Does it make you a bad person because you're selling guns?
Even Columbo says that. He tells him, like, oh, so you like this, Michael, what was his name?
Michael Dolan?
Dolan. But you can't look up to somebody like that because they were a terrorist. Yeah, I mean, so kind of the same thing.
I guess, yeah, which sort of explains maybe Columbo didn't have the respect for Joe Devlin that it seems to I'm sorry, I lost my train. That it appeared to be like he didn't really have the respect to go out and drink with him that he did. He was just doing it as part of the job.
Yeah.
So even though he knew he was a frickin' terrorist and stuff, and this goes back to something that he said in an earlier episode. Actually, not too much. Earlier, yeah, it was just only a couple of episodes before this about how getting to know murderers and stuff. But okay, so that's what I think it is. 170. You go ahead, Steve. What would you rate this thing out of 213?
I'm going to give it 171.
Ooh, you did it. Price is right. You did it. Price is right, sir.
So I really enjoyed this episode. You had the pinballs. You had. I felt Columbo. I like to believe Columbo knew who the murderer was early on. I like the characters. There was a lot going on. There was more than just a murder. Mm-hmm. There was gun running going on. You had Jim Varney selling guns in an RV. You had, Joe Devlin. I initially didn't like him, but he kind of grows on you.
Uh-huh.
I didn't find him particularly funny, but towards the end, he was out. I felt like there was a chess. I mean, I guess all Columbos are like this, but like there was a chess game going on.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed this one. I didn't like the first maybe 10 minutes, but by the end of the episode, I loved it. I thought it was a really great episode.
It's a dreadfully dull murder. Like, it's just he meets a guy in a hotel room, he shoots him, and that's it.
Yeah, we brought up earlier that there's no clean up the crime scene. Mm-hmm. He just kills him and rolls a bottle of whiskey at him. So there wasn't much for Columbo to figure out. And to be quite honest, the clues that Columbo had were kind of jumps in logic for me, but it was still a good story.
Not as a jump in logic as using a dream to...
Oh, that's true. That's true, yeah.
And to be honest, now that I think about it, we did not see Joe Devlin exit the crime scene. The last thing that we see is he pushes the bottle towards the body with his foot, and there could have been a whole sequence where he wiped everything down, including the bottle and the glasses.
Yeah, more than likely. That would make sense. Well, and one thing that bothered me with Columbo's train of thought, with the bottle falling to the ground, you saw where the stain of the whiskey was on the carpet. What? I mean, you could assume that the bottle fell, the victim picked it up, and then was shot and then dropped to the ground. I don't know how Columbo thought it fell and then was pushed towards his hand. As we discover, that was the case in this murder. But whatever, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought Clive Revill was a great villain in this, and one of my favorites. Yeah.
Oh, actually, he wouldn't think that the victim picked up the bottle because the victim was diabetic and didn't drink.
I did like that. Yes, I forgot about that clue.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know if medical science has, obviously made some leaps and bounds since 1970, whatever, but ladies and gentlemen, diabetics do drink. In fact, I know quite a few. So
I know you know at least two of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's exactly who I'm thinking of. You and I know the same diabetics. All right. So,
Steve, do the wheel of torture.
Steve, please swing that Wigan wheel of the Columbo 90s around, and let's see what else we have.
Okay, so this is for the later episodes, right?
Yes. It's okay. Just to clarify, for those of you who've been listening closely, there's the Wigan wheel of the 90s and the swinging wheel of the 70s. And I don't know if y'all noticed, but they both sound different when they're two different reels, so they sound differently.
Okay, so far I've definitely enjoyed the earlier episodes more. So
you've only seen one though of the 90s.
I'm looking forward to this, so I hope it picks a winner.
Okay, so go ahead and spin. Okay, so it is going to be. It is going to be Strange Bedfellows, starring George Wendt as the murderer.
Strange Bedfellows.
Yeah. Starring George Wendt and Rod Steiger.
And it sounds like soft porn. That's wonderful.
I'm not going to say anything about this one. I'm just going to say Strange Bedfellows.
I'm really concerned.
I haven't seen this one in years. In fact, I don't think I've watched this one since I first bought it on DVD. So, and before that, it was probably when it was first on. I just remember George Wendt, racehorses, and a bird bath. So,
what?
Yeah, that's all I remember about it. George Wendt, racehorses, bird bath. So
okay.
All right, well, until next time, everybody, join us for Strange Bedfellows. Watch it if you can. And good night, y'all. Bye-bye.